Here we go. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Performance Matters podcast. I'm your host, Matrix. We are back. Today we have Coach Jenn Kelly. She is the Brock assistant coach for the men's volleyball team at Brock University. Go Badgers, as well as the 17U coach for our Niagara Rapids volleyball program. We're just going to chop it up today. So, first things first, Coach Jenn, how did you first get involved coaching volleyball?
I played back in the day when volleyballs were all white and very old. Rules were a lot different, and then I started a family, and my athletes, my kids at that time, wanted to get into a sport, and volleyball was the only sport I basically knew aside from baseball. So we found a local club and got them involved. And as I kind of went through the programs with them, I decided that I could continue my kind of playing career by coaching. So that was the next step, was to step into a role of coaching, and that's what I did. I contacted the club and got involved with a couple of teams, and I haven't
Okay.
stopped since. That was 11 years ago.
Oh, cool. All right. So, how did you kind of get involved within the Brock University men's program?
I started originally actually over at Niagara College. So I was with Niagara College women's program for 3 seasons. And then my girls started playing for Niagara College. And I thought at that point it was probably best that I stepped away from coaching them. I didn't really want to be involved with that. So I was contacted by Brock and moved over to the men's program, which was an interesting switch because I went from coaching all females all the time to men, which was a little bit of an adjustment, but absolutely great. So
Okay, I got you. So then, kind of building on this, if you had to summarize your coaching philosophy in a couple of sentences, how do you think your philosophy would kind of evolve? And then from there, do you find there's any differences from working with your collegiate level athletes or university level athletes, and then compare that to your high school age athletes as well?
I think my philosophy starts with we still want them to have fun in the gym, but be accountable and work hard. So it all surrounds all our rules, our regulations, our codes, all kind of surround around that accountability factor. But while you're still finding joy in the sport that you love. So it's a hard balance to find, but I think we've managed to have that. I have great coaching staff that help with that. And whew, translating it from collegiate to club is a tough balance because obviously the age difference is a little bit of I'm dealing with like young females or young men and then translating that into kind of adults. But I think that setting them up at a younger age and giving them accountability and life lessons is going to carry on into the older ages. So I think it's just I've actually taken the older age coaching and transformed it and actually implemented it into younger age instead of vice versa, whereas like the younger age can kind of progress. I think I'm taking the more mature steps and implementing them earlier than I used to because I've seen that that is more beneficial like the longer they stay in the sport, if that makes sense.
Okay, so you talked about accountability. So then walk me through how you would hold your university team accountable, kind of walk me through that. And then again, compare that to the high school age athletes, because obviously there could be some differences. So like what does accountability look like? How would you define that? How do you translate that message to each team? And then how do they respond accordingly?
I think taking care of your daily details is a huge aspect. And then that transforming into time management is going to enter the gym. So everything you do from the second you wake up in the morning has to be taking care of details. If that means that you're starting from like making your bed to making sure you clean up the sink, like full of your dishes that you made for the morning. And then that translating into maybe I need to like make a schedule every day of what I need to accomplish. And that includes getting to the gym, getting to your practices. That accountability factor takes care of all of the gym. So I hold my athletes to a high standards when it comes to attendance. And that has translated into the younger ages no matter what. Because I think that if the sooner they find life balance, they're going to have a ton going on. They're going to have school going on. 17, year old kids have a lot to think about with the future of university or college. They have a lot going on. And I think as soon as they start to time manage, they realize that life becomes a lot easier. And then going into the gym becomes a release instead of another task that they have to do. So taking care of those details all day long is something that we want implemented from the younger ages. I even go into 13U kind of gyms and say, what did you do to win today? Did you make your bed? Did you have breakfast? Did you do those things? And then when you got to the gym tonight for practice, did you have your bag packed? Did you put your backpack where it was supposed to be and it doesn't look like a disaster? Those small details are actually going to translate on the court then. And I find that it's ageless. We deal with that from 13U all the way to the collegiate level.
Yeah. No, it's those daily wins are pretty much imperative, and it's kind of goes back to philosophy like that 1% better, kind of win the moment
Every
type
day.
thing. Those you stack those wins every time, and then eventually, it's not the instant gratification. I think that's a battle that a lot of young athletes are kind of facing now with this whole new technology sweep is that instant gratification. They see something cool, it's like that dopamine hit. It's kind of hard to see the forest through the trees, especially when you see everyone just kind of promoting the stuff that looks flashy, looks cool, and makes them feel good. No one's going to post or highlight the bullshit. They're always just going to highlight they're going to see the best self of that. So, I think it's imperative that, teaching them that 1% better philosophy, how to stack on that, daily wins, and then plant the seed, water it, you'll reap the benefits later type thing. I think that's very important. So then if you're working with, let's say, like your younger age groups, let's say like your high school age athletes, how do you handle, let's not even say adversity, but let's say pushback? Because again, they're at that age too where I think all athletes, regardless of high school, college, pro, they want the accountability. They respond to truth. So how do you kind of enforce that? How do you set the standard? What does that look like? And then how do you handle possible pushback? Like, what does that look like?
I think it's really important to make sure that you set out those standards early. So on day one, you make it clear to your athletes what your expectations are and listen to them on what their expectations are too. Because if you understand what their expectations are and what's going on in their life, then you can find a balance between the expectations and accountability. I think that has to be set out day one. You can't decide day 15 after you've had some issues that you need to change the philosophy from day one. So I think setting it out and making it very clear that we expect you to be at practice, we expect you to time manage, we expect you to, be good teammates, all that really, really early on. And then you can go through the season with going back to those original kind of philosophies and say, oh, no, 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 you remember we agreed to this when you signed on for this. And that's why you have to be accountable. Um, is there's room for pushback. There's room for understanding athletes. I think one of the biggest obstacles is obviously parents have to be on board for all of this as well, because we are dealing with young athletes that go home to their parents. They're still young adults that are still under parent supervision. A lot of these parents have
Mhm.
to drive them to practice. A lot of these parents make the final call. So you have to communicate that with the parents too. The parents have to be on the same page when it comes to what the expectations of the team are. Otherwise, there's going to be pushback from everybody, and the cohesion and the culture is going to break down. So I think it's really important to set the expectations day one, but then when consequences, athletes are going to have to understand that there might be consequences, and that's just the reality of playing high performance sports. That if you don't do what we're asking to, there's going to be some consequences.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So then how do you, like, let's say for example, how do you select your starting six? Like, is there, and again, this might change tournament to tournament, this might change week to week. Other coaches, some have frameworks where they evaluate practices every week, and then based on the stats of practice, that's how they kind of lay it out. What's like your thought process? Again, lining up with the vision, the accountability that everyone agreed into. How do you determine like who's getting court time? What are you looking for? And then maybe the intangibles that go along with that.
I look at a lot of stuff. So I look at the stats from the last tournament. I'm going to look at the practice attendance and how they're executing in practice. Plus, I have a staff that I rely on to be like, hey, did you see this? Did you see that? And then there's actually a game planning aspect. If we are playing against teams that we know, if we're playing against teams that we have seen before, and there's certain things, I'm going to look to the players that need to be better blocking subs or more effective servers on certain teams. There's so many factors that come into that. It does change week to week depending on what's coming up as well. If it's just like a scrimmage that we want to get development going, we'll make sure that there's, some people are getting playing time that don't necessarily, but they still work hard. Now, if you haven't worked hard, you're not getting playing time. That's just the way that it's that's the way cookie crumbles. But I think it all depends on what the factors are. If we're going into an important tournament, I want the best six players on the floor, but I also want the best six players that are actually going to cohesively match. So, like, if there's a leader on the floor and you take that voice off, is that going to impact the playing of the other players? Probably. She might not be the most skilled player. or she might have some, a little bit of holes here and there that maybe you can use a sub to fill those holes or what have you. But if you take that voice off, is that more detrimental than the skill value that it brings? So you have to look at all those factors, and you have to rely on your coaching staff to see that what you always can't either. And I'm very thankful that I have a ton of coaching staff and experienced coaching staff that I have eyes everywhere on the court to make those decisions.
Okay. So then how do you develop like those leadership roles on your team? So let's say, like you said, if you have a player that you have to pull off the court and then you want to see what the dynamic is, like how are you creating those leaders within the team? What does that look like? What's the conversations? What are the intangibles you're looking for on that? Like what do you think is going to make that?
I'm a strong believer in not just having one captain on the floor or one captain on the team. I have a leadership team, and I think that the leadership team brings something to every point of that team, just because there might be somebody on that leadership team who's better with holding people accountable on their homework or supporting on, what's going on at home. And then there's another leader that is the voice of the gym and is always, the loudmouth that's kind of encouraging. And then there's another leader that, takes care of conversations and stuff like that. So with them as a team, they are able to kind of bring all different attributes that are going to benefit the team. And then other players can feel more comfortable going to all of them. So if there's one player that's more comfortable going to one player saying, I have an issue with this, or I want to be better at this, then that player feels comfortable going to one person instead of, the entire team, or going to one that they're not comfortable with. So we built a leadership team on the 17U team, and we've done the same thing at Brock. Whereas all of those players bring something to the table that combined make a team of leaders. So we don't just have one set leader. We have a whole bunch of them that have different attributes that benefit the team as a whole.
Okay. Okay. And you said the same things at Brock. That's kind of
Yep.
the same
There's a
translation. Yeah.
leadership team at Brock as well.
Okay. Gotcha. That's interesting. Yeah, it's always cool, like especially volleyball being like a huge energy type sport, and and just kind of seeing how we kind of make things as objective as possible, especially with the younger age groups where it's not like they're playing every weekend, every other weekend, kind of like how university might be, where there's set games, you can take more frequent stats. It's kind of like you're going by the last major tournament,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. So it's interesting to see how that framework lines up um, with the leadership. So then let's talk about parents, because fucking whew, parents. And I think we were talking to a coach the other day about this, and I think he said it really well. And he said some athletes fall victim to circumstance, right? Whether that be like a coaching change, like you might have recruited a kid, let's say in university, you might recruit a kid in first year, and then that coach, fucks off somewhere, and now what they projected to be their path has just fucking all fallen around them. I think the same could be said for even at the younger age groups in high school, and club teams, where they might have had this trajectory. Coaching staff says one thing, and maybe now you're fighting parents. It could be a huge internal battle. So how do you handle? Let's break this down. How would you start that conversation off beginning the season with parents to lay out the expectation, and then how do you handle, let's say, the athlete's best interests, and then navigating that with the parents themselves?
You have to become an expert at balance. So at the beginning of the year, I have a package that goes out to all my athletes that sets out the expectations, and the parents have to also review it and sign it and send it back. I don't see this, obviously. You don't see the parent pushback at all in university or at college level. The parents are basically non-factors, but especially at the younger ages, a lot of them are driving them to practice. So if they're late, it's because maybe mom didn't get in the car, or mom didn't get home from work. So you have to really kind of balance that. Is that mom's fault or is that the kid's fault? But you can still say, hey, I get that mom didn't get home from work, or I get that you guys are doing that, but is there any way that we can maybe work a carpool in? So there's always compromise, but you have to
Mm-hmm.
always understand as well that parents make the final call at the end of the day. And either they're on board or they're not on board, but you hope that you can find a balance somewhere through the season that you can make it. I don't ever like to feel like I'm dealing with parents. I don't want to have to deal with parents. I want to be able to share the experience with parents, because those athletes have to go home and they need that safe spot at home as well to be able to talk about what happened at the gym or be encouraged at home for sure. So I don't like dealing with parents. I like just being, on the same page as parents. And that starts day one. If they're not on board and they don't understand the expectations of a high performance team, it's going to be a bad February.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're to kind of tie that then. You can say you have this objective framework, say who determines playing time, all that kind of stuff. And then Now, again, you have a standard, but sometimes it's the parents at fault. So then how do you manage that? Let's say, for example, you set those expectations, someone's late or they're constantly late, but because now you're going against your word. And we
Yep.
know that athletes respond to truth and respond to trust. And we've seen it all too often ourselves in our own experiences watching teams essentially crumble because the coaches will say a standard or what they say is a standard and then make an exception to the rule. And now that's a hole that every athlete can jump through. Essentially, it's like you just broke the chain. So how do you kind of handle that? Like, what's the difference between like something objective? I say this is the rule, you know, the consequence, and they still, fault of their own or not, they go against that.
You still
And it
have
could
to
be,
give the consequences, unfortunately. If that means that dad can't drive you to this practice because if you communicated that and it's not an often habit, then you still have a consequence because it's still a decision. Parents were on board in September. Parents need to be on board now. And unfortunately, that means, and then maybe the kid will actually take a leadership role in their family and say, hey, can we get in the car a little bit earlier? Can we do this? Can we do that? Can I call somebody for a ride? They have to take ownership of it too. So even though it might not be entirely their fault, the athlete needs to take accountability, and it's a learning opportunity for them to stand up and say, sometimes, I need to find an alternate route, or sometimes I need to find another way to get there because I can't always, I don't want the consequence that you're going to give me. And
yeah.
it will break down. It'll break down the trust in with all the other athletes that did make that, adjustment and did make sure that they were in the car on time. So you have to keep the trust of everybody.
Yeah. You can't sacrifice the program for an exception.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's detrimental because at some point you're trying to create a dynasty. I don't, versus these one-off situations where you hope for a good team and then, you might get lucky a year or two and then you have to kind of rebuild. But if you're kind of known already as a person that has to kind of hold true to your word, consequence or not, it's athletes see that, you know what I mean? They can feed off that. So it's imperative, I think. That's always the hard balance, right? There's always exceptions to the rule, but I hate the word exceptions to the rule because if it's a standard, it's upheld. It's a simple rule. It's like you know what you're getting into, you know what you signed up for. It's as clear cut as that. Things will go wrong, and there's some flexibility, but it should not be at the detriment of the program, right? You're trying to create the program itself. So, okay, so then let's go over recruiting strategies because obviously, trying to rebuild or trying to create that program, whether at the university level or at the club level for the younger athletes, what are you looking for from players? What does that look like? Kind of quantify it for me a little bit. Because again, I want athletes to hear all like what they should be doing, what that looks like, kind of the intangible stuff, but we're kind of trying to build on that. Like, what are you looking for when you're recruiting your athletes?
I'm going to look for non-skilled attributes before I look for skills. So you can be the best player in the world, but I want to see how you react to other situations before I'm going to be like, okay, you're my guy or you're my girl. I want to see how they are on the bench. I want to see how they are with their teammates. I want to see when they're pushed a little bit hard, how they react to that. I want to see how they are when they lose a point versus how they win a point. Everybody can win a point. Everybody can have a hard swing and look great on a highlight reel. But how do you react when you just got blocked? Or how do you react when you just lost a really tight game? That was your last game of the year, or those kind of reactions. When you get pulled by a coach, are you supporting the team or are you a detrimental bench player that just brings negative energy to the entire team? Those are the things that I see way before I see how you can swing, way before I see how you can serve. Anybody can put together a highlight reel and look like a champion. I don't care about those things. I care about the stuff in between those highlights that are going to make you a better teammate and bring good culture to my team. The culture aspect can make or break a team. I can find anybody who can swing and can touch 10 feet. So I think that is the first thing I look at. And then I will start to look at the skill to fill the holes. And then will your personality clash with the existing players? Are you somebody who's going to come in and be a leader, or are you going to come in and be somebody who's going to be difficult? I don't want that either. I want to make sure that you are an addition to the team, not a subtraction to the culture.
Fair enough. No, that's good to know. So then, um, let's go back a little bit in here. What do you think? Again, if you had to pick one trait for a coach, what do you think is the most important trait a coach should have when leading a volleyball team? Let's focus on at the high school level. What do you think is the most important trait for a coach?
Accountability as well. I think if we're accountable to our actions, I don't ever want to walk into a gym and think that I know more than the players. I know
Yeah.
more about how to teach them certain things, but I don't know more as a player. I don't know. I never played like club back in the day didn't exist for me. So do I know what those girls are going through to play high school and then come to a gym and what they have on their plate? I don't. They know more than that. So if they're going to bring something to the table and I'm going to bring something to the table, we meet in the middle as colleagues because that's how they're going to learn. So I need to be accountable for my actions too. If I'm, tired today and I'm having a down day, I need to be able to go to them and be like, guys, I could have been better today. So I think there needs to be trust between the athletes and accountability on my end too. So if something's not working out and something's breaking down on the team, it starts with my leadership first and then goes down the chain. So if something's not working, it's a reflection of what I'm doing. So I need to be accountable for what that's like for what's happening as well in the gym.
Yeah, very got it. So then how do you maintain like a strong relationship with your team? Like how do you kind of build that? Where are some things you can do or say to kind of like build that relationship positively with your team, with your players, sorry. How do you kind of build those relationships?
You have to know what's going on with them outside of volleyball. It can't always be about the sport. It can't always be about their lifts. It can't always be, I need to know like if they're taking math this month and math's just a hard subject. If, I like to know the dynamics of what's happening with their friendships. I like to know like silly conversations. Did they get a new dog? All of those like connections make you closer to the athlete, build trust, and then they're like, oh, you do care about me outside of here. It's not just about, oh, you care if I can make a couple serves in a row and if I'm good at game point. You care about me as a whole. I think volleyball is one of those subjects that, or one of those sports that it's really, really tough to individualize because there's 6 players, 7 players on the court at any given time, and then a bench. So those players have to work together. And if there's something going on with one of them, we all need to know about it because that's going to impact 7 others and then the other bench players as well. So if we can get on top of those and build relationships, then it will translate into the sport and it will build the trust that they need to be like, oh, maybe, you know what, I'm going to listen to her. Or it just builds a better relationship with everybody on the court, including the assistant coaches as well.
Oh, fair enough. No, you're not wrong. It's like I said, they respond to truth. It's they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, essentially. Like it's a basic, I think we're like the relationship industry essentially. Like they will lay down the line for somebody. And again, a lot of them might come from different backgrounds. They might have their own skills coaches. Um, so there's a lot of navigating there from like meet them where they're at type thing. You know what I mean? Um, so then moving forward, let's talk about the coaching life balance. So, how do you kind of find that balance between your coaching responsibilities and your personal life, right? Like it's always cool to see because again, sport is so dynamic and there's so many expectations that run along with it. But how do you maintain that balance? What does that look like? Walk me through that.
The balance starts in the sub when in April when the season's over. I guess I don't know. I think it's really important to think that the gym for me is an outlet. It's a joy. It's where I have relationships. I've built relationships. I enjoy being there. So I don't see it as work. So for me, like going for a walk in a park and going to the gym is almost the same thing. So my balance is that I actually am doing something I enjoy. If I wasn't enjoying it, then it would be a tough balance. But like I have a lot of people that are like, how do you have energy for this? Or how are you not, you're in a gym every night. I am in the gym every night, but it's just that's where I like to be. Like I enjoy those being in a gym. I enjoy seeing the girls progress. I enjoy the Brock players and them like, telling me what they did for the day. So it is like it's easy to balance because I enjoy it. And I'm not tired because I enjoy it. That said, you still have to have like, alone time and time that's not volleyball all the time.
Mm-hmm.
My 9 to 5 is not all volleyball all the time, but at the same time, you have to really appreciate the time that you have off then. So if it might be an hour here or 15 minutes there, when you can tune out of, volleyball and watch whatever reality show is making me feel like that I'm going to have a break, then if I need to turn on Love Island for an hour, I'm going to do that. I
Oh
don't watch
God.
that for the record. I do not watch Love Island, but I'm just using that as an example.
She totally is gonna watch Love Island now.
I definitely don't watch it.
It's okay. I'm getting stuck watching Love is Blind. I don't know what fucking
That
season
was
we're on,
that was
but
going to be my second one.
yeah, it's horrible. Like it's you know what you're in for, yet you still watch it, and I don't fucking know. I know why. I just don't. I'm not gonna fucking say why.
Mindless TV is it's a great escape.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. Um, so looking ahead, what are like the long-term goals for like yourself and your team
Hmm.
and, as a coach, essentially? Like what's next for you as a coach?
What do I want to be next? I would love to stay in the post-secondary world. I really, really enjoy that. I am with Team Ontario again this summer for the fourth season in a row. I love the pathway on that end. Um, I would like there is not enough women in the OUA and the OCAA, and I feel like we need to break that barrier a little bit. So I would love to stay in the post secondary world and the Team Ontario world, and maybe the national team eventually. Um, Club is always going to be close to my heart because I think that that's where we see the next generation of athletes come through, and that's where we see them progress and develop. And I love the development aspect, and I love the high performance aspect. So I think a part of me will always stay involved with the club. But yeah, to see those, like last summer, seeing some of those players play for, that I've trained over the last 3 years, play for the national team and play for the provincial team was a huge, like, just proud kind of coach moment. And I would love to see that continue. So although all the players that are coming up going through those pathways is incredible, and I want to continue being a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool to see like that tier system, stepping stone to make sure that there's a developmental section, a high performance section, then go out there and just fucking lay on the line, crush it. Um, if you could change one thing about how volleyball is coached today, what would it be?
Hmm. Hmm. If there's anything I've learned in the last 10 years of how that happens is that you can still coach and get your point across without doing so with aggression and anger. I think if there's anything that you like, yes, it's a competitive sport. It's a sport that you lose control of as a coach. You have to depend on the players and how their actions and what your hope that your training that you gave them for the week is going to implement onto the court during a tough time. But I think that you can get the same point across with positive language versus negative language and solution based language over just language. So it's like having a salad and having all of just lettuce, or are you going to throw all of the vegetables in there? I don't think you need to do that when it comes to game time. I think you can just have lettuce and make sure that there's solution though. So instead of like the girl saying my bad or I should have, that's on me, that's on me. I hate that language. And I think even in timeouts with volleyball, especially, you only get in like a minute. You need to have solution based language coaching. Otherwise, they're not going to do anything with that language. You saying get your serve over is not going to give them any information. They know that. Or how about
just be better. Have you tried trying?
be
Just do
better? It's
better.
not going to work. It's just like we know that this is going to be tough mentally to get that serve over. I noticed that there's, they're pinching on the left hand side. So like maybe we can work that seam a little bit. And if you give them information to kind of get their mind off of that, the solution based information is going to be more successful than just words. So if
Yeah.
there's anything that I have learned, it is make sure that your language, when you're actually talking to them, has substance rather than they're going to tune out.
Yeah, just fluffy, buzzwordy, hollow shit.
Yeah.
Just just saying the thing for the sake of saying the thing. Like, yeah, just try putting the ball in. Have you tried hitting it? Just
Yeah. They
bump
know.
the ball, set the ball. Oh wow, that's crazy.
Everybody knows we play the game for points. Everybody
Yeah.
knows that that's the that's the
Have you
outcome.
tried
It's
winning
like
the game?
if the ball bounces on their side, it's our point. If the ball bounces on our side, it's ours. They know that. The athletes know that.
Can you please suck less? That's
I
crazy.
once I said I think it was about a month ago. I said, "Well, guys, you're not playing bad, but you're not playing good." And they were like, "Okay, so we're playing bad, is what you're saying." I'm like,
So,
no,
what do we do with that?
yeah.
Thanks. Okay. Um, how do you want, I guess, how do you hope really? How do you hope your players will remember you as a coach? Like, what do you want your quote unquote legacy as a volleyball coach to be?
I if they forgot every skill that I taught them in the 2 years, the 1 year, sometimes 5 years that I've coached them, I'm okay if they don't even translate their volleyball skills into the rest of their life. If they want to join a women's league when they're 45, I'm happy with that. Or if they remember, how we taught them how to win, I could care less if they remember those things. But I think the translation of volleyball skills into life skills, if they can remember that, then I'm over the moon, and that's what I want to accomplish. If they look back and say that was the coach that told me if I made my bed I'd be more successful, and to this day I've been doing it for 10 years, those are the ones that I want to remember. I have an athlete that now lives in BC. She comes home every December and we meet up for dinner just because that's the relationship that we have, and that stuck with us because I was that one coach for her. I want to be, sometimes I'm not going to be the coach for everybody. I can recognize that I'm not going to be everybody's savior. But for the ones that I do resonate with, those are the ones that I just want to remember in 10 years and being like, you know what, she taught me this and I really appreciated that. I want to just make them better humans because there is a life after volleyball. And if they're just 1% better humans and they took something from what we taught them to, be more successful in their job, be more successful in school, those skills right there are going to be way more important than any volleyball skill that they learn for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, build better people. You know what I mean? Like it's not always about the X's and O's of that shit. It's huge to make an impact, and those things matter. Those things absolutely matter. So, what's one piece of advice that you would give to any aspiring volleyball coach? Let's say it's someone coming out of university, someone coming out of college. Like, what's one piece of advice you would give an aspiring volleyball coach?
Coach with joy, because as soon as you lose the joy, the athletes are going to tune out. So you have to find a way to find a connection to make sure that your love of that sport is seen by the athletes as well. You can't let any other factor come in and ruin the joy, because once that translates to the athletes, they know when you've lost the joy, and they are aware that you no longer care. And as soon as you no longer care, they have no reason to care as well. What are
Yeah.
they in it for if we lose the joy? So I think I mentor a lot of coaches, and that's the first thing I say to them is that you can be, as competitive as you want, but do it with joy. Make sure the athletes appreciate you and they know that you're trustworthy and that they have a relationship that is they can really rely on you outside of this because you're a leader to them. And I've seen a lot of great coaches come out. I really love that a lot of old players are coming back and trying to continue that. I'm an advocate for young women in coaching all over. And I think it's huge for a lot of university and college players to then try to take the skills that they learned as an athlete and translate that into coaching. So I love seeing young women make that switch. I'm working with Team Ontario this summer with, I think it's 2 or 3 young women that just got out of like playing in the last 2 years. And they have a connection with those athletes that I can't even like describe because it's amazing. And that's like the huge translation is they still love it. They came out of it. They loved their career and they loved playing volleyball, and now they want to continue it, and they're doing it because they want to do it, not because it's something to do.
Yeah. Fucking keep it fun. At the end of the day, it's kind of humbling, eh? What do you do for a living? I get to just teach kids how to play sports, and I wear track pants. It's like, keep it simple. It's kind of fun. It's better than us. It's like, what do you do all day? I just teach kids how to lift weights and run fast and jump high. Like really, I'm just like a glorified PE teacher. It's fucking awesome. I'm just an adult PE teacher essentially, or an extension of that. So it's like, don't keep your ego at the door. It's all good. Just dial it back a little bit. Keep it fun. It's at some point this too shall end. Just chill out.
And you learn from them. Like you learn, like I've
Oh,
learned, you feel younger. I learn more from athletes than I do like
oh God.
from any adult out there.
Yeah, it's yeah. You learn a lot. You become hip. You become hipper. I don't know. I learn all sorts of shit from
Oh,
these kids,
my
man. It's
my
fun.
dictionary is quite large.
Very extensive. Yeah, I've learned a lot in different languages too. It's crazy. So it's kind of fun. All right. Here's a couple of fun popcorn questions going to be thrown at you. Let's go with this one. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
That's impossible. Any historical figure. I am not going to start this conversation with you because you're going to get angry right away. But like,
Pick one. Pick one. Do it.
oh,
Do
I would
it.
say like old school Trudeau would probably be like the top of my list. But
Pierre Trudeau? Or are we
yeah,
talking? Oh,
yeah,
oh.
I know. I'm sorry. Like,
Why?
like
I'm open. I'm open minded. Why?
I think he like rewrote some of our like laws that were so extinct and got this country to a point of like our charter rights were basically revamped by that man, and maybe his legacy hasn't lived up to that, but you know.
He shit the bed with his
I
offspring.
know, just trying to get around that one, but
Ooh.
make this not about
Ooh.
politics, but you know, you do know my background. But yeah, I would say that that's one of them, just because I think the history of our country is kind of an interesting thing for me. So that would be probably one of the people that I would like to have dinner with.
Damn, that's not okay. I thought you were gonna go with like Abraham Lincoln, or I thought you were gonna go with like Muhammad Ali or something. Okay, well, hey, you know what? Something to learn from everyone. You know,
Muhammad Ali.
I don't know if I'd have, I don't know if I'd have dinner with that guy. Maybe like a brief luncheon. But
Okay, I could go with luncheon.
you
Maybe
know
a
what I
snack.
mean? Like a snack, coffee date. You know what I'm saying? Like, 10, you kind of set it like 11 o'clock and say I have to leave at 11:30. I have another meeting, but you're still
Okay,
giving the time.
I will
I think
compromise until a brunch date.
there you go. You made some good points on that. Okay, we'll leave that there. And then last one, what is the most unexpected thing you've learned in your career?
Hmm. Oh my gosh. I feel like you should have given me these questions like ahead
This
of
is
time
why it's
so I could have
popcorn style. This is
thought.
this is why it's
I don't
popcorn
like
style. This is what
popcorn.
makes it fun.
What have I learned? That
Most
triple
unexpected
ball
thing.
13U is like a whole new world last year. Um, Dealing with 12-year-olds is like corralling animals, trying to get them onto a cord. I don't know. It's like,
Herding cats.
yeah, they are difficult. So yeah, that I'm probably a better coach of adults than I am of young children because I don't know how to handle them. Maybe that's, you know, and that boys aren't very different from girls. I've also learned that, like, except girls cry and boys don't. So that's the only
Slight
difference.
differences. Yeah, some
The
slight differences,
game
but it
volleyball is volleyball across, men and women, but boys just they use less Kleenex.
wow. Hey, it only makes you better. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, hey, these are lessons that this is good. This is good. Awesome. Well, fuck, you did. This is fantastic. So then, where can listeners find out more or connect with you? If people want to reach out to you, where can they reach out to you to learn more?
A couple places, obviously. I'm on the Niagara Rapids website as one of the coaches there, and my information's
Shout
up
out Rapids.
there. I also am a mentor for the Ontario Volleyball Club, so I'm on as a mentor coach on the OVA website as well now. So if you're a coach that wants to kind of learn more about, even you don't actually have to be a volleyball coach. I was part of a mentorship program, and one of my partners was a frisbee coach, and
That's
we
awesome.
we learned more together going through the program with ultimate frisbee and volleyball like combined than, because coaching is coaching, so it doesn't have to be about volleyball, it can be any sport.
Wow. I'm gonna get that guy on the podcast. I want to talk frisbee. I want to talk like it's getting ultimate disc throwing
I
now,
actually
but
didn't even know it was a thing until I was part of that mentorship program. I was like, you're my partner, but you do what?
it's so fun. It's so fun. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, you did a hell of a job. Thanks, y'all, for tuning in. This is the Performance Matters Podcast. Subscribe to us on Spotify and YouTube. Coach Jen, thanks for coming on today, and we will see you all next time. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Bye.
Bye, thank you.